by the Buffalo Bills. Not anymore.
Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds.
Brandon Beane realizes they're in a window of 2 to 3 years max to get this done while the iron's still hot. And getting Von Miller into that situation was big for the Bills.
10, 9.
Oh, baby.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Great interview.
What is up, Buffalo Fanatics? Z-Bot here with you, live on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel on a Victory Tuesday afternoon. And that, of course, can only mean one thing. It is the smoke break. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Off of one of the most dominant performances of the 2024 season, served up on a silver platter by your Buffalo Bills. 47-10, the final on Monday Night Football in Orchard Park, as the Buffalo Bills knock the Jacksonville Jaguars essentially out of contention to 0-3, while they improve to 3-0. What a start to the year for these Buffalo Bills in their journey to this 3-0 record that they currently have. They'll put that on the line this upcoming Sunday night against the Baltimore Ravens in the bank. It just feels like every week we are getting a banger of a football game. Let's hope once again this upcoming week we get another banger performance from these Buffalo Bills. But we still have time to relish in what we just saw last night. We still have to take the time to enjoy it, because what we saw last night is truly a rarity. It's not often in professional sports you see domination quite like what you saw on display last night in Buffalo. There's a reason why the NFL has the most parity out of any major sporting league in the country. It's because whether you're the best team in the league, the worst team in the league, it's any given Sunday. And even when you're the worst team in the league, it's not often you're getting blown out on a consistent basis. Take the Carolina Panthers, for example. First 2 weeks, not going well for Bryce Young, not going well for the Panthers. They get smoked 2 weeks in a row. Dave Canales makes the move, goes with Andy Dalton, benches Bryce Young. And what happens? In week 3, Andy Dalton comes in. Those Carolina Panthers, who had 13 points through 2 weeks, score 36 points in one game against a Las Vegas Raiders team that just beat the AFC champion representing, or the AFC championship game representing Baltimore Ravens in their place. That's the NFL for you. That's why when you see things like last night, you can't write it off as, oh, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's what people say after the fact. Nobody was saying that beforehand. What we were saying was, this is a desperate Jacksonville football team who essentially has their season on the line tonight. This is a Jacksonville team that's playing for far more than just a victory in week 3. They're playing to save the season. You could argue right now Doug Peterson's playing to save his job. You could argue Trevor Lawrence is playing to preserve his legacy to some degree. You're talking about one of the greatest talents in college football history, one of the most touted prospects in the history of the league. The guy's closer right now to the Daniel Joneses of the world than he is to anything anybody would have projected him to be coming out of Clemson. There was so much on the line for the Jacksonville Jaguars last night. And for them to lose in the fashion in which they did with that much on the line is insane. But you can't chalk it up to just the incompetency of the Jacksonville Jaguars. With the amount they had on the line last night, there's no way they didn't go into that game with the motivation, the mindset that we got to get it done tonight. It's the Bills that forced their hand in playing one of the worst football games of the weekend, one of the worst games played by a team all year long. The goalpost continues to get moved. I've heard it all day today. I've tuned into the TV shows, the radio shows. Oh, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Oh, it's the Arizona Cardinals. People pick and choose how they want to define opponents, right? After week 1 against the Cardinals, people were concerned about the Bills' inability to beat the living hell out of them like they did last night against the Jags. People were more concerned about what the Bills looked like in the first half than they were in what the Bills showed us in the second half, which was complete domination. The Bills were down 17-3 at one point. They'd go on to score what? It wound up being, in the second half, the only touchdown the Cardinals scored was a kick return. The Bills would go on to score 34 points. It was essentially a 31-3 run in terms of points scored offensively. But nobody wanted to talk about that. They wanted to talk about the concerns of the Bills not looking that great in the first half against a Cardinals team that won 4 games. Then all of a sudden, you fast forward to week 2. Kyler Murray looks like the best quarterback in the league. Marvin Harrison Jr. looks like the guy they drafted him to be. They blow the doors off of the LA Rams. I believe the final score to that one was like 41-10. Absolutely beat the hell out of them. Then all of a sudden it was, oh, the Cardinals might be more than we thought. So within 1 week, the same Cardinals team that had the Bills on the ropes in the first half, all of a sudden, because the Bills struggled against them, it's a bad look for the Bills. But now all of a sudden, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe the Cardinals are better than we thought. I think everybody who had a brain following the NFL knew the Cardinals were going to be better than we thought. They're not a 4-win team anymore. Kyler Murray's healthy. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. That's a team trending upward. And they played the Bills extremely well. Beat the hell out of a Rams team that just beat the San Francisco 49ers this past weekend, a team that was a play away from winning the Super Bowl this past season. The goalpost will continue to get moved. Do not listen to it. Everybody's telling you after 3 weeks, let's see what they do against a real team. Let's see what they got going on in this gauntlet coming up here. Ravens, Texans, Jets. To some degree, I understand it. Those are 3 projected playoff teams right there. And we should learn more about these Buffalo Bills throughout those 3 games. Of course we will. When you're playing against the cream of the crop of the league, that often tells you what your team's made up of. But don't sit here and tell me that the 3 weeks that they've already played are just a write-off. You looked at that schedule before the season started. Those 3 games did not seem easy to you. Maybe the Cardinals game did. But even that, you knew amongst easy games, it wasn't like they were playing the Panthers. Wasn't like they were playing the Patriots. That game seemed a bit tougher than maybe met the eye. And that was their easy game. It's funny how the narrative on Miami changes all the time. When Miami looks great, all of a sudden they're the best team in the league. Everybody on TV wants to tell you they're going to finish ahead of the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East. They want to tell you Tua is a top 5, top 10 quarterback. They want to tell you that Mike McDaniel, an offensive genius, this offense is as good as it gets. You name it. But then all of a sudden when the Bills do their annual ass smacking of the Dolphins, it falls back to reality a little bit. Then it's just, the Bills own the Dolphins. The picking and choosing is ridiculous. You can't have it both ways. The Bills destroyed the Dolphins before Tua ever got hurt. The amount of times I've heard since that game, how impressed can you be against Skylar Thompson? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? That game was over probably the series before Tua even got hurt. When Skylar Thompson came in, both teams just threw their hands up in the air. They might as well have thrown the white flag in the middle of the field, shook hands at the 50-yard line, and went their merry way. That's how that game went down, because it was already over. If that game was a 1-score game when Skylar Thompson came in, I can't imagine that Mike McDaniel is just throwing his hands up in the air saying, we'll get him next time. The game was already over. That's why the rest of that game was essentially kneel downs from both ends of the sideline there. Both teams just said, all right, let's just get out of here. Game's over. The narrative changes constantly. And then this Jacksonville team. Last year, they were 8-3. They've beaten the Bills both times they played them with Josh Allen as the quarterback. They looked far superior than the Bills, in my opinion, last year when they were in London. They looked like the better team. Not only did they beat the Bills, they looked like the better team. 8-3 last year. Playoff team the year before that. A team that was supposed to win the South last year before it all went crumbling. And then a team going into this year with all the additions to that roster. Majority of people had Jacksonville not only threatening Houston for the division there, but of course threatening for a wild card spot. Now all of a sudden, nope. Prior to the season, the Jags had still lost, 5 straight? It's now 8 straight, but it wasn't like they were remarkably better than what they are now. But the narrative changes. And why does it always change when the Bills come to town? But even if you had these narratives, even if you have this mindset that the Bills have had an easy start here, how you could go with that argument after the way the Bills won these games is mind-blowing to me. I'd almost understand it if the Bills won on a last-second field goal against Miami after Tua got hurt. Skylar Thompson was moving the ball on the Bills' D. It was a chess match all game. Bills had to kick a late game-winning field goal to win it. And then last night, Jacksonville 0-2 on the heels of a 7-game losing streak. Bills have to scratch and claw to the very end to get the W. I'd almost understand the narrative. Hey, they're 3-0, but how have they looked? Who have they beaten? The fact that there are people out there who currently have that mindset, when the Bills are coming off of 3 consecutive games of 31-plus points, they're only one of 2 teams to have scored 100-plus points in the first 3 weeks. A team that currently has a plus 64 point differential, good for number 1 in the NFL. A team in 3 consecutive weeks, 31 points, 34 points, 47 points. 34 points, 31 points, 47 points. Hard to keep track with all these numbers. It's like phone numbers, these digits. Be a lot different if they were narrowing out these wins. And I find it so funny. I find it absolutely hysterical. The Jets last Thursday night against the Patriots, a team that people all of a sudden bought into because they beat the Bengals. We see how that's going. Bengals lose to a rookie quarterback at home last night. Maybe one of the best rookie performances in the last decade the Bengals allowed. Maybe the Bengals just aren't that good. God knows New England isn't, but maybe Cincinnati's closer to New England than we thought. But of course, week 1, New England beats the Bengals, and now we're propping up New England on a pedestal, especially after they carried that game into an overtime battle with the undefeated Seahawks. But everybody knows New England isn't a good football team. Far from it. By the time the season comes to a close, New England will be a bottom 4 football team. Book it. Yet the New York Jets last week, a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 13 years, yet a team coming into the year with a 40-year-old quarterback off an Achilles tear, projected to be not only the AFC East favorite, but one of the favorites to go to the Super Bowl and win it. They get the absolute shit kicked out of them by a 49ers team, mind you, who have lost both their games since playing that Jets game. I understand that they're more banged up than they were in week 1. No CMC, no Debo, no Kittle this past week. I get all that. But regardless, they beat the living hell out of the Jets. Those guys are not. That game was never, ever going to be in the favor of the New York Jets. In fact, CMC didn't even play that night. So one of the main guys wasn't even in to begin with. And Jordan Mason had 150 rush yards against that Jets D in week 1. So the 1-2 49ers beat the brakes off of the New York Jets week 1. But then the Jets barely scratch out a win against Will Levis and the lossless 0-3. Or lossless isn't the word. The winless, I should say. The winless 0-3 Tennessee Titans. Skin to their teeth victory against them. And then last week, this is where the narrative, this is what kills me about this. Because you're watching it unfold today on your Victory Tuesday. Because after Monday night, these standalone games, those are the only thing you can talk about on a Tuesday. You've already recapped Sunday. All these Monday shows have already done what they had to do with the weekend. Once the Monday games roll around, you trickle into Tuesday, that's what everybody's talking about. And what you're hearing today isn't a whole lot of much. You're hearing a whole lot of how bad Jacksonville is. You're hearing a whole lot more about Washington beating the Bengals. You're really not hearing a crap ton about how good, how dominant these Buffalo Bills are. Yet last week, in a similar situation, standalone game for the New York Jets on Thursday Night Football, they beat one of the worst teams, unarguably, in the league, the New England Patriots. And not only did they beat them, but they beat them in a way that was beyond embarrassing. That was a game, in my opinion, where if you looked at it, it felt like more of the inadequacies of the other team factoring into that win than it did the superiority of the Jets factoring into that win. The Patriots, I believe, before garbage time, before they put in Drake May, I think they had 94 total yards of offense. The Jets scored 24 points in that game. The Miami Dolphins, the New England Patriots defense in that game was an absolute sieve. The starting field position for the Jets multiple times throughout that game was phenomenal. They scored 24 points. Yet that Friday, last Friday, what did you hear? I told you. What did I tell you? You wanted to write them off after week one. You wanted to write them off. I didn't write back. Aaron Rodgers, right back to the MVP race. New York Jets, right back to the AFC championship race, the AFC East race. 24-3 victory over the New England Patriots. I'd argue 75% of the league could pull off that exact outcome. Yet last night, 47-10, it just feels like, whatever. It's the Jags. They suck. So last week, it's not, New England sucks. Good for the Jets. Should be expected. No, it's, the Jets are back. Jets are back, baby. Look out. Aaron Rodgers looks like prime Green Bay Packers Rodgers, prime back-to-back MVP Rodgers. This Jets offense, man, everything we thought it would be under Rodgers. This Jets defense is good as we know it to be. That's what kills me. The goalposts getting moved, and it's selective. It's from team to team. Now, I don't know if there's Bills fatigue. That's probably what it is. There's probably Bills fatigue because the Bills are so good every year in the regular season. They get to the postseason. They're really good in the postseason as well, but ultimately come up short. So people have just had enough of them, and they're sick and tired of, watching them do well again because they're just expecting the inevitable collapse at some point. But the Jets are the new shiny toy on the block because they have Aaron Rodgers, so it's a lot more fun to, fantasize about the idea of them being far better than they actually are. But when you compare these two things, it's night and day. What the Jets did to the Patriots wasn't even a shell of what the Bills did last night to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are a much better team than the New England Patriots. Might not be playing like it right now. Compare those two rosters. Go ahead and name me 5 guys on the Patriots roster right now. That's how bad things are in New England. Say what you want about Jacksonville, and they're a bad football team at this point. They've lost 8 straight games. There's no denying it. That's a bad football team. On paper, it's not. I don't understand how they're as bad as they are. It doesn't make any sense, and that's why Doug Peterson's seat is blazing hot right now. That's a good football team on paper on both sides of the ball. I don't quite get it. But you compare those two games, the Bills allow a touchdown more than the Jets allowed to the Patriots, yet the Bills scored double the amount of points that the Jets scored against the Patriots. And it just seems like one team got propped up back onto the top of the pedestal, and the other one in the Bills, it was just like, who have you beaten? What have you done? And that's why I'm on here today to lament once again about what we saw on Monday Night Football. We touched on it a ton last night, Rico and I, on the post-game show. For all those who tuned in, really appreciate it. It was a blast. We've had an absolute blast these first 3 weeks, especially the last 2 weeks, these primetime football games. Rico and I hop on afterwards, and we're having a ball. And how could you not be? These Buffalo Bills are playing the best football in the NFL. And it deserves a whole other smoke break dedicated to talking about it. Like I was kind of getting to at the top of the show. Last night, it doesn't matter how bad a football team is. This league has so much parity that last night is rare. The way the Bills dismantled the Jacksonville Jaguars is rare. You look around the league, for example, I'm a Penn State college football fan. And this past weekend, Penn State played Kent State. They were a 49-point favorite. The Vegas line for Penn State was minus 49. And guess what? They covered. Penn State won 56-0. You go to college football, and the discrepancy between the Big Ten and the SEC and the MAC and the Mountain West, it's like a different sport. It's a completely different sport. The competitiveness between the top of those leagues is night and day. It's not even comparable. There are times in the NBA where there'll be massive spreads. A team like the Celtics going up against last year, who was it? The Pistons, who had like a 20-game losing streak. There will be spreads sometimes in the NBA of 20-some points. In the NFL, even if you're the worst team in the league, it is rare that you are ever an underdog of more than 10 points. A 10-point spread in the NFL is basically the equivalent of that Penn State spread this past weekend against Kent State. That's how rare being considered that much worse than an other team is. As I told you earlier, even the Carolina Panthers of the world have their day. Even the Carolina Panthers of the world can show you any given Sunday that they're far better than what's advertised. In that game against the Raiders, they were like a full touchdown underdog. They won by 14 and scored 36. That's this league. So last night, the Bills are a 4-point favorite. And they win by 37. They score 47. And outside of really, the second half, the first touchdown of the second half, it just felt like they were kind of letting them have it. Prevent defense by Bobby Babich and company. Get us out of here healthy and let's move on to Baltimore. Jacksonville was lucky they even scored last night. That was as big of a beatdown as you'll see. And that's why you can't just write it off as, oh, it's just the Jaguars. Because even if it is just the Jaguars, even if it is just Carolina, it's just New England. Games like last night aren't commonplace. That's why what like Minnesota did this past weekend against Houston was insane to me. Because Houston, in my opinion, a far superior team to the Jacksonville Jaguars, a playoff team from last year who got a victory. That's a team that many think will be threatening at the top of the AFC this year. Vikings took them to the woodshed. That's rare. What the Bills did last night, rare. They've done it in back-to-back weeks on primetime television. When the lights were the brightest, these Buffalo Bills have stepped up in the biggest way. Two primetime games back-to-back. The Bills have outscored their opponent in both those games 78-20. National stage, standalone game, everyone's tuning in. 78-20. Allowed 10 points in both. 31 last week. And mind you, that 31, by the way, against Miami, that essentially, it all came in like the first half. Like I keep mentioning, that game was over so badly that at the end of the game, it just felt like both teams were waiting for the clock to run out. They were just running the ball up the gut, punt here, punt here. It felt like both teams were taking knees. Didn't you have the impression last week that 31 points for the Bills? It kind of felt light. The Bills didn't even score an offensive touchdown in the second half, and they still scored 31 points and won that game by 21. Didn't score a single offensive touchdown in the second half. And then last night, pretty much the same manuscript. It was 34-3 at half. 34-3. In 30 minutes of football. The Bills scored touchdowns on 5 consecutive drives in the first half. And that's against a team, I don't care how bad you think they are, that was projected to at least finish second in that division and be vying for a playoff spot. And the way that this team is doing it, to me, it's the most impressive football being played right now. I understand an argument for Minnesota. I'd hear that out. Because what Minnesota's doing with Sam Darnold at quarterback, that's mesmerizing to me. I think it's awesome. Good for Minnesota. I think they're playing just as inspired football as the Bills are, just as clean football as the Bills are on both sides of the ball. Because Minnesota's been playing terrific defense and terrific offense. That's the biggest shock in the league right now. But I think it's a shock to many, including myself, what the Buffalo Bills are doing currently with what they have and with what they've lost. The biggest gripe on the Bills going into the year, the biggest accusation towards them was the fact that they were not going to be able to overcome what they lost in the offseason. And I know you guys are sick and tired of hearing about who they've lost, but you have to talk about it because it makes what they're doing with those losses infinitely more impressive, in my opinion. Because the narrative all offseason was that the Buffalo Bills, there was no way they could do anything but regress based on who they lost. When you lose the amount of captains and all pros that this team lost on both sides of the ball, I think that's the inevitable conclusion that people make. But there were some of us who looked at this and said, man, this really does feel like it could be addition by subtraction if they do it the right way. Because we saw what Joe Brady did when he took over last year, and they really did not utilize Stephon Diggs when Joe Brady took over last year. They did not utilize Gabe Davis. They ran the ball more than they threw it. Josh Allen was back to what we want out of Josh Allen, and that's making amazing plays, running the ball, but also playing without reckless abandon. Joe Brady got that out of him last year. So we saw the writing on the wall, and we were thinking, man, there could be some potential here. You also factor in what this defense not only is, but has been under the entire duration of the tenure of Sean McDermott. There was certainly plausible arguments behind why the Buffalo Bills shouldn't be as good as they've been. But there was also that glimmer of hope as to how they could possibly get back there. And what they're doing is capitalizing on all of the things I think we all thought had to happen in order for this team to do just that. Either get back to where they were or, dare I say it, play even better. And I don't know if it's that big of a hot take right now to say that through these first 3 weeks, this might be some of the best football these Buffalo Bills have played under Josh Allen. I don't think it's that steaming hot of a take. This is remarkable what we're witnessing on both sides of the ball. And there's so many things that factor into it that make it that much more remarkable. I mean, when you take into account that last night, the reason why the Damar Hamlin moment was so big is because Damar Hamlin is a guy that 2 years ago you didn't think would be playing football again. And then based on the losses the Bills had and the injuries, all of a sudden, it goes from a guy in Damar Hamlin who you never thought would play a snap of football again. Oh, my God, he's starting for the Bills. Not only is he starting for the Bills, he's making big-time plays on prime-time football for this Bills defense. You got guys currently on this defense right now that nobody outside of the Bills fan base has ever heard of, yet they're playing some of the best defense in the entire league. That, to me, above anything right now, is almost unexplainable. The only way you can explain it is two words: Sean McDermott. What Sean McDermott is doing right now, it feels like some sort of sorcery. And I don't think that there's any other coach in the entire league that could do what the Bills are currently doing defensively with what they have on that roster. I'm 100% staunch in that belief. You take this exact same defensive roster and put it on any other of the 31 football teams, I don't think it looks like this. There might be a handful that could get the most out of them. Steve Spagnuolo right now for the Chiefs is coaching at an all-time clip defensively. That defense is off the charts. There might be a handful of teams. But I don't know. Because it's not just the scheme, it feels like. It's the culture. Milano goes down, blows. Next man up. Teron Johnson down, blows. Next man up. Christian Benford down. Terrell Bernard down, blows. Next man up. I mean, right now you got Jamarcus Ingram from UB playing top-tier football in the secondary for these Bills. Damar Hamlin, like I mentioned, interception last night, a guy that was never supposed to play football again. Christian Benford right now might be one of the best defensive players in football. Nobody knew him a year and a half ago. Not to mention the revitalization of this front four. You got Von Miller playing prime Von Miller football right now. Greg Rousseau looks like he is evolving into one of the best pass rushers in the sport. And we haven't even gotten to Ed Oliver, who I think out of those two has been the one that's fallen below him just because I think he hasn't had his shining moment yet. Still playing terrific football, and we know how great of a player Ed Oliver is. Plus, I think a lot of these things when it comes to the defensive line, it's very complimentary. Greg Rousseau and Von Miller aren't going to have a day if Ed Oliver isn't also in there messing things up, allowing other guys to make plays. If you remove one of those guys, you're allowing the offense to focus more in on other guys, and it ruins the whole thing. It's a collective unit that's playing absolutely terrific football right now. You can also mention in there A.J. Epinesa last night had an extraordinary sack. It's just a well-oiled machine isn't even doing it justice. It's a rotation, and it doesn't matter what the pieces are within that machinery. So long as there's a piece put in there by McDermott, it continues to rotate and rotate and rotate without a single misstep. Last night, let's talk about this defense. Because to me, there are so many things right now that are making up what I think to be maybe the most complete Buffalo Bills football team that they've had under Josh Allen. And that's insane to say. But it's really starting to feel like that. The numbers are starting to reflect it, and the scoreboard is really starting to portray that. Really. This defense last night, just to give you an example, if we're talking about the things outside of what we already know, what we already know is that Josh Allen, top two quarterback, you can debate it. You can debate where you want him within that. To me, you know where I have him. But you have that. So any given week with Josh Allen, who in my opinion, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but in my opinion right now, he's the MVP of the league. You already know you have that on your side. You're already aware of that. So therefore, you bake that into how you evaluate the Bills. You already know that regardless of who's going to be out there, the Bills are going to have at least a sound defense. You can't fathom the Bills having anything other than a top half defense. You also know by now that with Joe Brady that they're going to run the ball, and they've had success in doing that. But it's the little things that are going unnoticed because of guys like Josh Allen who overshadow everything. Every little thing about this team right now is being done at a top tier level, all the way from the top down. Brandon Beane and the team that he has constructed. Do you think that this team would be as good as it is without the depth that they've had to fill in for these injuries? Do you think it would be as good as it's been without the pieces put around Josh Allen to succeed? There might not be a Stephon Diggs out there. They might not have the Jamar Chases of the world. They might not have the Philadelphia roster on offense that looks like an all-star team when it comes to the weaponry department. But they got the right guys. Also in the trenches as well. Then, of course, the coaching. Like I just got through saying, this defense is not what it is without Sean McDermott. Then, of course, the quarterback. The two coordinators right now, I think, are doing the Lord's work at the coordinator position. Find me two better coordinators in the league on the same team right now doing what these guys are doing in Babbage and Joe Brady. But it's the little things that go unnoticed and nobody will talk about. And to me right now, it's the defensive line and the offensive line. We know the weakness right now for this Bills D, and you really wouldn't know it based on watching any given Sunday the first 3 weeks. You really wouldn't know it. But of course, on paper, the weakness right now is the secondary. Hasn't even been a factor, pretty much based on how dominant this Bills defensive front has been. What did they have last night? Another 5 sacks? Last night, the Bills defense blitzed at a 16% rate. 16% blitz rate. Yet applied a 35% pressure rate with 11 different players registering at least one QB pressure in the ballgame. The cohesiveness of this team right now, the complementary football is exemplary. It's literally a masterclass. What you're seeing in terms of complementary football right now could be taught at a university in terms of how it's supposed to be done. Because on the defensive side of the ball, you're blitzing at a 16% clip, yet you're getting home at a 35% clip with 11 different guys registering a pressure. You flip over to the offensive side of things, and it's the same story. The Jags doubled the Bills' blitz rate last night. Doubled. Bills had a 16% blitz rate. Jacksonville had a 32% blitz rate. You would think the team that blitzed more than double the amount of the other team would have a higher pressure rate because of it. The Bills' defense, 16% blitz rate, 35% pressure rate. The Jags blitzed on 32% of dropbacks with only a 23.5% pressure rate. Doubled the amount of blitz that the Bills brought to the table, yet had nearly 12% less pressure on Josh Allen. I just spoke to you about the fact that there were 11 different players defensively who registered a pressure. There were 10 different players offensively who registered a reception. Textbook. Like I said, this would be the course in complementary football at your local, at UB, whatever, right down the road, wherever. That right there in a nutshell. And that isn't even factoring in what Josh Allen's doing, what James Cook is doing. This is just the little things that go unnoticed that no one's going to talk about. This is what's propelling these Bills to look like one of the best football teams in the league through 3 weeks. It's guys like Spencer Brown. Once again, the amount of guys on this team right now that outside of the Bills fan base, nobody knows. Spencer Brown, a guy with a long injury history that was on the fringe going into last year. Nobody knew what the future would hold for Spencer Brown. They knew, though, he'd have to have a great year last year in order for the Bills to extend him, and that's exactly what he wound up doing. He was phenomenal, and he, alongside Deion Dawkins and the rest of the line, were able to contribute to what I thought to be the best offensive line the Bills have had with Josh Allen. They haven't skipped a beat going into this year. Spencer Brown, once again, a guy that was seemingly on the fringe not all that long ago in terms of what the future was going to hold for him in Buffalo. Spencer Brown last night allowed zero pressures on 35 dropbacks. That was his third straight game, allowing zero pressures. All 3 regular season games for the Bills in 2024, Spencer Brown has not allowed a single pressure. And many might argue, well, who the hell was he going against? Well, last night it was Travon Walker for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was the first time in his entire NFL career that he had been held without a single pressure in a football game. That's a man last year that posted double-digit sacks in 2023. Travon Walker had 10 sacks in 2023. There has never been a single game he's played in where he has not registered at least one pressure in the football game. Last night, Spencer Brown with the hat trick holds him to his worst performance of his NFL career. That's just one guy. Josh Allen never sacked. The pressure rate compared to the blitz rate, a fraction of what it should have been. And that's why everything just seems to be clicking. The defensive line is getting home. There's nothing down the field. They're sacking the quarterback at an all-time rate. These teams can't move the ball. Then offensively, the offensive line playing some of the best in the league. Josh Allen has the ability to take what's coming to him as opposed to having to force anything. That has led to 0 interceptions for Josh Allen. That has led to over a 70% completion percentage, the best of his career. If there's one thing about Josh Allen that you would not guess, it would be that he currently is the best short passing quarterback in the NFL. Josh Allen currently through 3 games has the best success rate in short yardage throws in the entire NFL, registering the second most yards within those throws in the entire league. And last night, there was no better example. You saw exactly that. Right out of the bat, right off the bat, right out of the chutes last night. First snap of the football game. What was it? Shotgun snap, 2-step, 3-step drop back. There's James Cook on the left side of the field, out of the backfield, 20 yards. Just a quick out route to the running back on the game's opening play. 20 yards. That same drive when they got faced with a 4th and 3, they lined Shakir up in the backfield. Pretty much run the same play that they ran last week to James Cook for the touchdown against Miami. He's wide open. Dink, dunk, boom. There it is. And all night long, right on that first drive and throughout the whole game. It just felt remarkably easy. And that's probably because it was. I was watching the highlights earlier. The top comment right now on the NFL YouTube page's highlight reel of the game last night, the top comment, someone said, Josh Allen looks like a dad at a kid's birthday party. And you know what that means. The dad's playing all-time Q. These little kids are rushing after him, and he's throwing darts all over the backyard, doing whatever the hell he wants. That was like a full-time team playing a regular season game last night against a practice squad type team playing at their practice facility last night. That's what that felt like. That's what that looked like. But when you factor in what the offensive line has been able to do, you factor in the progression of Josh Allen's decision-making. I mean, it's off the charts. A guy that was projected to be one of the most raw quarterbacks to ever enter the league that needed the amount of refining that he needed, projected, right, to get to where he is now. You know the saying, it would defy math itself. Even in his 7th year, the progression is off the charts. Because last year, even in week 1, just a season ago, pretty much a year from right now, Josh Allen, week 1, had 4 interceptions against the Jets, and it was the reason they lost the football game. The guy hasn't forced a single throw through 3 games. 1, he hasn't had to, but 2, this is the biggest key to me. You could argue at times he never really had to, even last year. But it was the sugar high Josh Allen, as we would refer to. I got to do it. I got to make a play. It just feels like I got to do something here. He's not doing that anymore at all. And I can't think it's just a stint here. We're talking 3 straight games where he's done the exact same thing, and it's registered the most points scored in the NFL. Right now, the Buffalo Bills are the number 1 scoring team in football right now. This is the team that was supposed to make a massive regression with the loss of Stephon Diggs. They are the number 1 scoring team in the league right now. Have yet to score less than 31 points in 3 consecutive football games. What Josh Allen is doing right now, the most impressive thing to me is the simplicity of it. It's funny. The guy who can make any given play on a football field, the guy who can make the play that 30 other quarterbacks in the league can't, is currently playing his best football because he's making the play that probably all 31 other quarterbacks in the league can make. But he's doing it at such an efficient rate. He's doing it at such a high success rate that look what it's leading to. That's the irony in all of this. Josh Allen was always the quarterback that could make the play nobody else could. But the argument was, can he implement more of the plays that everybody can make in pursuit of not turning the ball over, maintaining possession, sustaining drives, moving the sticks, scoring points. That's exactly what he's doing. How ironic that Josh Allen, who has now become the quarterback through 3 weeks, best known for his short passing yard game, is playing probably the best quarterback of his career right now. Because right now, Josh Allen is the overwhelming MVP favorite. As I told you on Twitter yesterday, he would be. Because when you're looking at these primetime games, they stand alone, and the factor that these games have into the decision-making for these MVP voters is far more than you realize. These standalone games, when everyone sits and watches you and you alone, they weigh in on these individual accolades so much more than a game buried in the 1 p.m. window. If Josh did what he did yesterday against the Jags at 1 p.m. in Buffalo on Sunday, you might not be hearing nearly as much about the dominance that he's displaying. Josh Allen right now, plus 200 to win the MVP. Plus 200. For an MVP, that's insane. Usually the odds for that are well into the high hundreds. He was above plus 800 to start the year. And within 3 games, he's slashed that fourfold. And I know a lot of you think it doesn't matter, the MVP. It matters to me a little bit because Josh Allen has been one of the most disrespected professional athletes I've ever seen. Validation at some point needs to be given to how great this guy is. And you're starting to see it. And I hope it continues to be sustained throughout the year, because if it does, he will 100% win it. And he 100% deserves one throughout his career here, as good as he has been. And it does matter in the long haul. These rewards, whether you care about them or not, they do matter. And I don't know why people write it off. This is something that us Bills fans would absolutely love to have as a representation of how great this guy has been. And right now, he is the overwhelming MVP favorite, and rightfully so. And he's doing it by just taking what's given to him, doing the right things. But the beauty in all of it is that you still don't lose the Josh Allen that has made him Josh Allen. You don't lose that. He's just doing it the right way. Last night, Josh Allen, for instance, the moments when he needed to make a play that other quarterbacks couldn't make, he did. 3rd and 11. Josh Allen hasn't been running it as much as we're accustomed to under Joe Brady. It might be because of the hand injury. Who knows? He hasn't been running it as much, but he's been running it efficiently. He's been doing it when necessary, which is what everybody always wanted all along. It felt like at times Josh was running himself into issues for the hell of it. Last night, you had 2 great examples. There was a 3rd and 11. Josh Allen against man coverage, he knew what was coming. Immediately faked the pass, ran right up the middle. It was the one he slid right at the first down line. First down. 3rd and 11. That's a play right there. That's quintessential Josh Allen. The instinct to do that in that moment, and then the ability to execute it. Then there was another one, 3rd and 5. There were 2 third downs where Josh Allen had his longest runs of the game. Done in the right moment, the decision-making and the execution off the charts. So those are the moments you don't lose, despite all the great he's doing in the short yardage game. But then the play like to Dalton Kincaid on 3rd down for the touchdown. Who else is doing that in the league? There might be a couple, right? Mahomes could do it. There's a few. But you're still not, the overall point is you're not losing those unique moments that very few quarterbacks in the league are able to do. You're just getting them when they're necessary. You're not getting them on 1st and 10. You're getting them when they're needed the most. You're not getting them in unnecessary moments. And I think that's what everybody's always asked for. They've always asked for Josh Allen to not put the cape on when the cape isn't necessary. But how this has been able to evolve is the ability for the team around him to remove the cape for him. It's kind of like in Spider-Man 2. When Peter Parker or Spider-Man with his mask off, remember the train's going down, the train's rolling down the tracks, and it's about to fall off the tracks. It's going 1,000 miles an hour. Dr. Octopus destroyed the train track, and if Peter Parker or Spider-Man doesn't stop it, it's going to go right off. It's going to derail. It's going to kill everybody on the train, and God knows who below. And what happened? Spider-Man puts out the webs. He stops the train. So, yeah, the main guy still does most of it, but what happened at the end of it? Spider-Man's about to fall off the train himself, and a civilian grabs him. A civilian grabs him before he falls off the tracks. And then what do they do after that? They pass him back. They take Spider-Man's back and they pass him back up on their shoulders throughout the train car. Josh Allen is still the Spider-Man. But he's now got the guys behind him, the coaching behind him, the scheme behind him, the assets around him to be there when he's about to fall over. There's your helping hand to keep him from falling off the ledge. And he hasn't fallen off the ledge. And the ledge could be a variety of things. Throwing interceptions, right? Turning the ball over. Unnecessary running, unnecessary hits. This is just an absolute. It's art. It is a display of art right now, what we're seeing on both sides of the ball. And all you can hope is that it continues. But through 3 weeks, it's all we've seen. And it's a hell of a test this upcoming Sunday. And once again, you're talking about a moment. I'm talking about how big these primetime games are. The legacy game for Josh Allen on Sunday. If he goes in to the bank in Baltimore on Sunday, one of the tougher places to play in the league. Baltimore fans are crazy. If you go into that stadium against the two-time MVP, the team that was in the AFC Championship a year ago, if you go in and play the way that he played the last couple of weeks here, what more do you need to see? I'm sure after that, if it does end up happening, we'll see. We'll see what he does against those Texans and his former teammate in Diggs. We'll see what he does against that New York Jets defense. It's always going to be something every given week. All I know is I have 3 games of the season thus far. So does all 32 teams. And what I've seen is the best quarterback play in the league, some of the best offensive line play in the league, some of the best running game in the league. Even though the numbers might not show it, the efficiency of the run game and what it has allowed the Bills to do in the pass game. The numbers in the run game aren't going to blow your mind. But you also have to factor in that the Bills have never been able to run the ball up until last year. And now this is what has opened up for them because of it. Not to mention one of the best front fours in the league, one of the best overall defenses in the league. Right now, one of the best coaching jobs in the league. Top to bottom in any given category right now, the Buffalo Bills are a top 3 ranking in any given category right now. Any given category. And I'm dying to see what it winds up looking like this upcoming weekend. I really am. Because this game is a true test. It is. It's a big game. The Baltimore Ravens are considered to be one of the teams like the Chiefs. What was the Bengals? I don't know what's going on in Cincinnati. Season essentially ended last night at the hands of rookie Jaden Daniels in his 3rd start. Right now, and Baltimore is on the edge too. That's a team 1-2. You want to talk about who you beat? Who have you beaten? Any team worth a damn beats the Cowboys the way that Baltimore did the other day. It happens every single time. It happens every time. Any team worth their salt, any team considered to be one of the better teams in the league, will beat the living shit out of the Dallas Cowboys, guaranteed. They've all done it, and the Ravens just did it again. But we know the Ravens are no slouch. That team is loaded. But I'll tell you what, they have a very weak offensive line. And this Buffalo Bills defense, especially up front, has been dominating. That, to me, is going to wind up being one of the biggest differences in this ball game, I think. Derrick Henry really got it going against Dallas, but so does everybody. They had 275 rush yards in that game, but the 2 games prior to that, it wasn't like it was all that great. People were questioning whether or not the acquisition of Derrick Henry was even worth it, whether it even made sense for these Ravens thus far. That, to me, might be the biggest difference in the ball game. But once again, another true test under the lights in prime time, and these Bills get to go out once again. And if there's any doubt on what the Bills are currently, if there's any doubt on what Josh Allen is currently, I think Sunday night, a performance like we saw the last 3 weeks, a performance like that this upcoming Sunday night is going to go a hell of a long way for even the biggest of haters. Because despite Baltimore and their struggles against decent teams, and despite their ability to close things out, that we know what Baltimore is. We know Baltimore isn't Jacksonville. We know Baltimore isn't Miami. We know they're not Arizona. This will be the toughest game thus far. You're playing against the 2-time MVP, a Super Bowl winning head coach, one of the greatest running backs of my lifetime. And it's in their place. Really hostile environment. I cannot wait for that game. My wedding weekend, too. Loaded up weekend. Loaded up. Today, I right before I joined it, I was at the wedding hall dropping off everything, getting everything set up. And I was just thinking to myself, how lucky am I to have had these Bills do what they've done going into the wedding? It just adds that much more excitement and that much more happiness to my plate. Obviously, the wedding's going to be great regardless, but if the Bills got waxed last night, it'd be like, oh, that's a bummer, right? That's a bummer. Just clicking on all cylinders, carrying that in. And I'll tell you what, a win against the Ravens on Sunday night would be the ultimate. It would be like the little bride and groom on top of the wedding cake. That's what that would be for me this upcoming weekend. And I cannot wait for that game. And how lucky are we, too? We're getting these primetime moments, these big games, and they're delivering. I mean, this is just a joy to watch. It's just an absolute joy to watch. And I hope you guys are all enjoying it because I'm enjoying every single second of it. I mean, last night, it almost got to the point where it was getting redundant. You were getting bored with how great this football team looked. Now, that's something I don't think we can get used to, but it just goes to show you the extent in which this team can be great. Because last night, they're so great, it's almost to the point of boredom. Even if they bring to the table, like last night, if they bring to the table 3/4 of that, they're going to be able to beat any given team any given week. Last night was it was utter dominance. It was absolute utter dominance. And the thing is, you don't even need that type of play to win every given week. You just need, I would say, 3/4 of that. Maybe some nights half, depending on who you're playing. That's what you're getting from these Bills right now. You're getting such dominant play that it feels like even if they did take a step back and, kind of reverse back to the mean a bit, the way that seasons typically play out, when you're so far above that mean, if you do wind up coming back to earth a bit, your back to earth is still one of the best teams in football. And it's a variety. It's the individual efforts, too, that are all collaborating amongst each other that are resulting in this. And 4Kids Party Rental is saying he's making a great point here. Khalil Shakir, one of those guys right now. We spoke about it last night on the pregame and postgame show. Khalil Shakir, 4Kids is saying Khalil Shakir hasn't dropped a pass in 2 years. I mean, it feels like it. Since the start of last season, Khalil Shakir has the highest catch-to-target rate in the entire NFL. With a minimum of 50 targets, Khalil Shakir has been the most sure-handed wide receiver in the entire football league. And that's a guy last year, midway through October, going into November, did you really know entirely who Khalil Shakir was? Now he's Josh Allen's most sure-handed guy. And not only is he one of the more sure-handed guys, his ability to get yards after the catch is extraordinary, especially when you factor in his body size. Like, it's not like he's a DK Metcalf out there barreling over guys and getting additional yards. He's got your standard slot receiver body type, yet he is one of the toughest tackles in the league right now, it feels like. And it just feels like you never get him down on the first hit. He did it again last night on that touchdown pass. He catches the ball in the flat. You're thinking, all right, it's going to be a first down. All of a sudden, you blink, boom. Oh, my God, he's in the end zone. 6 targets last night for Shakir, 6 touchdowns, or 6 targets, 6 catches, with the 1 touchdown and 72 yards to lead the team. I got a next-gen stat right here to back up what I'm saying in terms of this yards after the catch. It says right here that on the 27-yard touchdown reception for Khalil Shakir, he gained 16 additional yards after or above what the expected yardage on that play was. So with these advanced metrics, they're able to determine what the expected outcome of a play like that should be. And then they factor in what actually happened and they kind of compare the two. And on that particular catch, Next Gen Stats says that Khalil Shakir gained 16 additional yards over the expected amount of yards gained on that play. It also says Shakir was productive out of the slot where he aligned for 18 out of his 22 routes, caught all 5 targets within the slot for 60 yards and a touchdown. Shakir gained more yards after the catch than he had receiving yards due to an average depth of target behind the line of scrimmage. That right there, I mean, that's the most resounding example I can give you in terms of what I'm talking about. how good this guy is, not only catching the ball, but getting yards after the catch. That right there is insane to me. Shakir gained more yards after the catch than he had receiving yards due to his average depth of target. So he's basically become one of these guys right now where Josh Allen can just get him the ball, right? Josh Allen's getting rid of the ball about as quick as anybody in the league right now. Like I mentioned, he is the most efficient passer in the short yardage game in the league right now. And this is adding a whole lot to it. You get it to a guy like Khalil Shakir, and he just makes mountains out of molehills. Catch in the flat, an additional 16 yards over expected. Boom, he's in the end zone. Richie Fresh coming in. Richie. He's saying Shakir is our Edelman, plain and simple. That's how it's felt through the first few weeks here. I mean, really, that's how it's felt since about the midway point of last year. And that was always one of the bigger criticisms for these Bills in terms of weapons. Yards after the catch. Shakir's been extraordinary. And he led the way last night. But to me, this committee approach is incredible. And the way Josh Allen said it last night, that's been making some headlines today. You can infer in that what you want. When he essentially said that I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said that it's really refreshing to have guys in the wide receiver room that do not care about their stats, that just want to contribute to W's. And a lot of people have inferred that was a shot at his former wide receiver one. And yeah, maybe it could be inferred as that, but is it inaccurate? Because right now you don't have a wide receiver one. Not a single one of these guys is in a position in their career. Not a single one of these guys has earned the right to demand the football like the majority of these wide receiver ones throughout the league do. Therefore, they all play as a cohesive unit because no one guy seems to be more important than the other. And that's why last night you had 10 different guys catch a ball. Shakir led the way with 6 receptions, but nobody had more than 4 after him. And the second leading receiver was James Cook, which is exactly what I've wanted to see. Last night, you're signing up for this out of James Cook. 17 out of 17 weeks in the regular season. 39 rush yards, 48 receiving yards, and a touchdown. You're getting just under 100 yards all purpose and a touchdown. And he's been bringing that to the table every single week. And the one thing I wanted to see the most out of out of James Cook this year was improvement in the pass game. You are seeing that. Now, I know he dropped that beautiful play last night, but they scored 2 plays later. And that would have been a hell of a play. Allen overthrew it a bit. He had a guy in his face. He threw it off his back foot. It would have been a hell of a play. It didn't end up happening. It did hit Cook's hands. You were hoping he would catch it. But I'll give him the hall pass on that one. It was the only target last night he didn't catch. And thus far through the season, he's been money in the pass game. Absolutely money. And last night, he's second in line in terms of catches and in terms of yards. But when you're looking up and down this list of receivers in the production, it's just incredible how it all formulates. Because you're looking at Josh Allen's numbers last night. He only threw 2 passes in the second half. 2 passes. He was 22 of 28 going into halftime. He finished 23 of 30. Or maybe he was 22 of 29, something like that. He only threw 2 passes in the second half. So you're getting, this is what Josh Allen's numbers were last night. 23 of 30, 263 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's good for a 77% completion percentage and a quarterback rating of 142 with just under 9 yards per attempt. 99.9% of that came in one half of football. And when you're looking at the receiver list, nothing stands out other than the solid day from Shakir. The rest of it is pretty pedestrian, but when you tally it all up, that's what it equals out to. When you tally up all of these average numbers, it tallies up to a more than perfect passer rating, just under 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, 9 yards per attempt. And the biggest key to me here, 77% completion percentage amongst all of that. And the biggest thing, 0 turnovers, 0 interceptions. But you had James Cook in the second spot last night in terms of production out of the receiving game. I mean, Kincaid, the thing that the point Allen was making last night when he said it's great to have guys that aren't worried about their own stats and contributing is because he essentially said that when their number is called, it's going to be impactful. And he couldn't be more right on that. Because you had 4 different guys catch a touchdown pass from Allen last night. It wasn't like one guy was dominating like Cook did last week against the Dolphins. 4 different guys caught a pass. So nearly half the guys who caught a pass for a touchdown. And what Allen was saying was that you might not get the most targets, you might not get the biggest numbers at the end of the night, but when your number is called, it's going to be an impactful moment. And it couldn't be more true. 10 receivers caught a ball last night. 4 of the 10 caught a ball for a touchdown. Keon Coleman last night had 1 target. 1 target. And I know a lot of people are frustrated with the lack of production or the lack of utilization of him. And my question is why? It hasn't been necessary. And last night when his number was called, look what happened. One of the best plays of the night. A deep ball for Keon Coleman's first touchdown as an NFL player. 1 target, 1 reception, 1 touchdown. That could not be more evidence to the fact that Josh Allen last night said, when you're going to get a moment, it's going to be impactful. That right there, you couldn't find any better evidence if you tried. 1 target, 1 catch, 1 touchdown. And when you look at this, yes, Khalil Shakir led the way. 6 receptions, 1 of them was the touchdown. But Dalton Kincaid, only 3 catches. 1 of them was a touchdown. Teron Johnson. I mean, guys, we're getting our 3rd string running back involved here in the pass game quite significantly. 3 catches, 1 of them was a touchdown. And then the Coleman one. 1 target, 1 catch, 1 touchdown. When your number's called, are you going to make it count? And every single one of these guys is doing exactly that. It's almost incomprehensible. All of these little things, it really is something. All of these little things are stacking up into one big great thing. And that was what is the biggest thing we hoped would happen going into the year. And it's exceeding all expectations thus far. There's no way even the most optimistic fan could have predicted it to be this clean, this efficient, this successful, this early. Caleb's bringing up a point I wanted to touch on quick too. He's saying Coleman was benched in the first quarter for showing up late to meetings. I don't know what he was late to, whether it was late to the game or a meeting. I don't remember exactly what, but he was benched because of it being late to something. I don't know about you guys. I absolutely love that. There's a reason why the Bills are one of the toughest, grittiest teams in the league. And there's a reason why the culture is as immaculate and respected as it is. Because there's no bullshit. There's no playing games. You're here to do a job, and you're here to do that job right, or it's next man up. I went on a whole rant yesterday about Mike McDaniel and the whole Bentley situation. I'd like you to think right now long and hard about the idea of Sean McDermott pulling up to One Bills Drive in a Bentley. You can't even visualize it. That's how unearthly that seems. I don't know what McDermott drives, but I wouldn't be shocked if he drove like a Toyota Camry, to be 100% honest with you. Did you see McDermott going into halftime yesterday? I think maybe it was Laura Rutledge doing the interview. If I didn't tell you what the score was and you hadn't watched a single snap of that game in the first half and all you saw was McDermott's interview with Laura Rutledge, and you just watched him, you didn't even really listen or whatever, because maybe through the tone you could infer that things were going well. The question about how well they were playing obviously would probably give it away. But if you were just watching the body language, you would not be able to tell that the Buffalo Bills were up 31 points going into the locker room. That's exactly how I want it. That is exactly how it should be. A leader of men should be exactly that. You wouldn't be able to tell if the Bills were up by 1, up by 31, or down by 1, or down by 31. That's what I want out of my head coach. Because that's what a leader of men looks like. Never too high, never too low, always preparing for the next moment, always knowing this is business. And Josh Allen's very good at that as well. Josh Allen's extremely good at that as well. You're seeing all these guys throughout the league, some of these clowns like Cam Taylor-Britt for the Bengals, talking a world of shit just to go out and lose. I can't stand that stuff. Talking about how the Washington Commanders offense is a simple college offense. They went out and scored 38 on him with a rookie quarterback in his third start. The Bengals have been doing this forever now. The Burrowhead. Better cancel those tickets. I cannot stand that type of approach from a football team. The arrogance, the cockiness. And what do they have to show for it? You know, if there's any team in the league that should be doing that, it's the Chiefs, and they don't do it. And why? Because they're all about the next one. Tom Brady and the Patriots, they were all about the next one. Let all these other guys say the bullshit that makes you just look bad. There's no other way to put it, especially when you're not backing it up. And the key there is you're never going to always be able to back it up. You might be able to back it up a week here, a week there. You're never going to be able to consistently back it up over time. It's always going to come back to bite you. That's why in any given moment, you do the right thing and the right thing only. You never get too high. You never get too low. And these guys do it to perfection. Once again, to me, it's all these little things in conjunction that makes this team so great. This is just one more of them. Josh Allen at the podium. I think today people are spinning the whole thing into him taking a shot at Diggs. You can look at it like that, but maybe it's just the fact that it's the reality. Maybe you're taking it as a shot at Diggs because it's the truth. Diggs did care about his personal numbers. Diggs did care about how much he was involved in the offense. And Diggs, it did feel like when the Bills weren't doing well, he had thought they would be doing better if he was more involved. And he's not the only one. The majority of these top receivers are like that. We've seen it forever. This is nothing new. It's been going on my entire life at the wide receiver position. So whatever he said, you could take it as a shot at Diggs. I don't look at it that way. Josh Allen's just speaking the truth. You got guys in here who don't care about the numbers, and when their name is called, just know that moment's going to be an impactful moment in the game. You might not get 12 targets, 10 catches, 150 yards, and 3 scores. But when you are involved, it's going to be a pivotal moment in the game, or it's going to have a major outcome on how the game winds up unfolding, and each guy is going to have that moment. That's exactly what it's been. You can inflate what he said all you want and make it out to be some shot at Diggs. Go look at the numbers. It backs up exactly what he said. Nobody's had more than 80 yards receiving for this team through 3 weeks. I don't think anybody's had more than 6 catches in a game. What he said is exactly what we're witnessing. It's not hyperbole, and it's not some dig at anybody. But maybe the reason everybody thinks it is because it could easily be interpreted that way. And why? Because, of course, that's probably exactly how it was. You don't think there was pressure on Josh Allen to get the ball to Diggs over other guys? You don't think there was pressure to get Diggs more involved in the offense? Get him his touches? You saw it last year. How many times did they draw up a bubble screen for Stephon Diggs that could not be further from his game? But it was just a play to get him the ball, to try to get him involved. That's gone. And you're seeing this team play as free as they ever have. And you saw it last night. The grin for Josh Allen and all the boys on the sideline, ear to ear. Not only are they playing extremely well, not only are they dominating, they're having fun doing it in the right way. In the right way. McDermott and Allen are the precipice of that. They are the overwhelming representation of what this team is in all the good ways. So back to what I was saying about McDermott benching Keon Coleman for the first quarter of the football game. I love it. Accountability. Just because you are our first draft pick of the 2024 draft and you're expected to be the guy that's going to be the face of our wide receiver room for the foreseeable future doesn't mean you get to show up late. And just because we're going to need you out on the field doesn't mean we're going to excuse it and not take you off of it to teach you how important it is to be here when you're needed. I don't want to speak for Mike McDaniel. I don't know if he's done this in the past, but I'd put a large sum of money on betting that he hasn't. And he's just one example. Not everybody does this. But you see the difference in mentality, culture, and then overall outcome between guys like McDermott who are willing to hold people accountable, who are willing to be the guy who doesn't get high, doesn't get low, stays the course, business is business. You see the difference between that and then what I think to be what's going on in Miami, a team that is mentally untough, physically untough, gets bullied by the best teams in the league on a week in and week out basis. I don't think it helps that Mike McDaniel's pulling up to the facility with Gucci loafers on in a Bentley and a $50,000 watch on. If you want to show up like that after you won the Super Bowl, be my guest. If Andy Reid showed up to the Chiefs facility with a Bentley and a $75,000 Rolex on, I think it would be hilarious. Good for him. If anybody in the league's earned it, it's freaking that guy. But you want to know what? Just like I said earlier with McDermott, you couldn't imagine him doing it. And it's probably the reason why they're so successful, because I think that those guys who allow themselves to get caught up in all this are more susceptible to not pursuing the ultimate goal at hand. The guys that are dialed in are the guys that are succeeding the most. And you might not think that the Bills have the success to show for it, but they are the most winningest team outside of Patrick Mahomes in the last, what is it? I think ever since Allen's entered the league, 64 wins or something like that. It's either under Allen or maybe it's the last 3 seasons. Last 4 or 5 seasons, the Bills only trail the Chiefs in terms of total wins in the regular season and the postseason. So you might not think that they have the success to show for it. Nobody does. Outside of the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Bucks in a one-off and the Rams in a one-off, nobody's got the success to prove it. The Bills have been the most successful franchise outside of the Kansas City Chiefs in the league the last half decade or so. I know that they don't have a trophy to show for it. I know they only have one AFC championship to show for it. But in terms of getting it done on a week in and week out basis, the Bills only trail the Chiefs in terms of success in the NFL. And I think there's a reason for it. And McDermott's certainly one of them. Josh Allen, of course, certainly one of them. The way that they carry themselves, represent the organization from top to bottom. It all makes sense. It all adds up. They do the right thing all the time. And right now they're doing all the right things on the football field all the time. And it's resulting in a hell of a fun watch. And I'm loving every single second of it, as I'm sure you are. And I hope it continues. And I hope this upcoming week we get a hell of a lot more of it, because they're going to need it against this Ravens team. And if it happens again against this Ravens team, I mean, I'm going to start to get more animated than you've ever seen. If the Bills are able to go and execute what they did the last couple of weeks here against the Ravens on Sunday night, or at least come close to it. Like I said, I don't think you're going to get that continuously. But if they can find a way to channel like half of that or 3/4 of that this upcoming Sunday, I think that that's going to be good enough to win the football game. I do. You know, the Chiefs in week 1 against the Ravens, they didn't look particularly great at all, and they still wound up winning that football game. And then, of course, you got the Raiders this past week. They were trailing the entire game down by 10. They still wound up winning the football game. So you can't tell me if the Bills play at half the clip they played last night, 3/4 of the clip they played last night, that you don't like their chances against Baltimore. Before we close up shop, I want to give a shout out to a couple of our new friends here at Buffalo Fanatics. We partnered up with a couple of awesome new brands that we're really excited to talk with you about because these guys are awesome. And not only do we appreciate being partnered up with them, but we appreciate the services that they're offering because we love them over here at the Buffalo Fanatics. Not only do we utilize them, but we love utilizing them as well. And right now I'm talking to you about my friends over at Factor. Factor right now is offering a killer deal that I have for you in the link in the description below. They're offering 50% off your first meal box plus 20% off your next month after that. The website is factormeals.com/Buffalo50 with the promo code Buffalo50. So you might be wondering, hey, Bob, what's this box you're talking about? These meal boxes, what is it? Let me tell you. Factor right now is offering you meals that will help you meet your wellness goals for whatever you're trying to achieve. Whether you have a wedding coming up like me, you're trying to get a couple of pounds lost before next year's summer, you're going into the fall and winter here and want to get a head start on it. Whatever you're looking for, Factor has you covered to meet your wellness goals in terms of offering you chef-crafted meals with a variety of different options, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, you name it. Factor has you covered. It's fresh, never frozen meals that are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. I've been saying this and it couldn't be more true. I hate going to the grocery store for a variety of reasons, but no more than the fact that I actually have to get up and go to the grocery store and deal with a million people. I actually went to the grocery store on Sunday, this past Sunday. It was a zoo, an absolute zoo. So you got to scratch and claw and fight to get your groceries. And by the time you get up to actually pay for them, you got to give them a mortgage payment, essentially, to get out of there with those groceries that you had to spend an hour hunting down. Not with Factor. 2 minutes, they send it to your door, and within 2 minutes, it's going to be ready to go and eat. Right now on the website, they have 35 different meals to choose from, plus 60 additional add-ons. And that's from everything from breakfast to dinner and everything in between. Also desserts as well. Tons of cool breakfast options. They really have a ton of variety that you can choose from right now on Factor. It's going to allow you to enjoy an effortless, healthy lifestyle, and you can choose from a variety of different options that will best fit your dietary needs. So once again, head over to factormeals.com/Buffalo50. The link is in the description below. Use the code Buffalo50, and that'll get you 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month after that. Make sure to take advantage. I got my first box coming next week, and I can't wait to tell you guys about it because there's some delicious stuff coming my way. I got the Protein Plus box, so I'm really looking forward to diving into that. Also want to tell you about our friends over at Underdog. The Bills might not be looking like an underdog, but if you want to get in on what the Bills are doing to these underdogs, then download the Underdog Fantasy app. It allows you to get into the game in a whole different way and have that much more fun, not only watching our Bills, but the NFL as well. With football in full swing, you got a variety of different games on when the Bills aren't on. Like, for instance, this past week, you have a full slate of Sunday games. You want to have a little bit of action on it, making it a bit more fun. Underdog Fantasy is the way to do it. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by making picks on Underdog. And the beauty of using the app is that you can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player's stats, like touchdowns, passing yards. And last night would have been a perfect opportunity to do this. And maybe you can get in on it this upcoming weekend with Josh Allen against the Ravens. Last night, Josh Allen went higher on his passing yards, higher on his touchdown projection, and higher on his completion projection. Josh Allen was higher like Creed last night, and he would have definitely helped you out if you had him on your Underdog Fantasy lineup. So I think it's a perfect opportunity right now to dive into it because we have another Bills game coming up in less than a week here. And if we continue to get like the performances we've gotten from Josh Allen recently, no reason not to go higher on Josh Allen, maybe higher on James Cook. You can set your own lineup, make it your own, and you're off to the races. Making picks on Underdog, super straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com and sign up with the promo code BMafia. And Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code BMafia to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. We also have the link right down in the description below so you can take advantage of it right there. Must be 18 plus, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call 24/7 the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. Underdog Fantasy link is in the description below. All right, so tonight coming up, my main man Rico is going to be hopping on with you, and I know that he is fired up to dive into this one again, as I was with you this afternoon. And then later in the week, we're going to be diving into a preview of the Baltimore Ravens game. I don't know exactly what the schedule is looking like yet. I got the wedding on Friday. I'm booked up Thursday getting ready for it with the rehearsal dinner and whatnot. But sometime between now and tomorrow, I'm hoping to have my good buddy Bobby Baltimore on, who covers the Baltimore Ravens, hoping to have him on the channel to talk about what we can expect this upcoming Sunday. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'll keep you posted on what ends up happening in terms of when we're going to do that. So make sure to follow me over on Twitter, and I'll keep you updated when that's about to go live. But tonight, you got the Rico Report coming at you right here on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel, and Rico's going to dive into a whole lot more about what we saw last night, which was utter dominance in the absolute best way. That's going to do it for us today on this episode of The Smoke Break. On your way out the door, hit that like button and that subscribe button if you'd be oh so kind. Really appreciate it. Also, make sure to check out all those awesome links in the description below. Also, by the way, on your way out, be sure to check out the Autograph app. I've been telling you guys about them all season, but the link's in the description below for the Autograph app as well. I absolutely love that app, and today's a perfect day to use it because you can listen to all the top YouTube shows, all the top podcasts right on the app, including the top tweets and articles surrounding the Bills, all within one app. And while you're doing it, you earn fan points that you can use to redeem for jerseys, tickets, you name it. So much cool stuff going on in that app. It's free to download. Links down in the description below, alongside of our other links as well. That's going to wrap it up here for this afternoon edition of The Smoke Break, a Victory Tuesday afternoon edition of The Smoke Break. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, everybody, we'll talk to you later in the week. Much love, as always. Enjoy Victory Tuesday, and go Bills.